Hello everyone, it's Mrs. Williams and this is week 2 of our virtual reading lessons. Okay, so today we're going to continue with The Hunger Games, our novel that we started last week, and I'm going to be reading from the beginning of chapter 3 in a short while. So hopefully using last week's video and your independent reading at home and reading with a reading buddy, you are up to chapter 3. Okay, so if not, you need to go back and make sure you are. So before we start reading today, as I said, there is going to be a quick quiz. So I've written some questions for you, and I've also written what page the answers can be found on. Okay, so if you need to go back and find the answers now, so you can pause this video and work on the questions. So number 1, this is a question I posed to you at the end of last week's video. Number 1 is, what is the day of the reaping? Okay, what is the day of the reaping? So if you've got paper, you can write the answer down on there. Remember, try and make sure you're prepared for these videos. So you've got your pens, highlighters, pencils and a ruler. Okay, so what is the day of the reaping? The answer to that can be found on page 12. Question number 2, what are the Hunger Games? So what are the actual Hunger Games? Which gives us the title of our book. Okay, so the answer to that can be found on page 17. Number 3, what is the name of Katniss's country? So the country that our novel is set in, which doesn't exist in real life, it is fictional. What is the name of that country? That again can be found on page 17. And question number 4, what animal does Greasy say buy off Katniss to make soups? Okay, so Greasy Say was the character in the Hob. And if you remember, the Hob was the black market, which means where people can sell and trade things illegally. So that was where Katniss was selling the things that she'd been hunting, things that she'd foraged for, things that she'd found in the wild at the Hob, the black market. What was the animal that she sold to Greasy Say? Okay, and the answer to that can be found on page 11. So I'm just going to leave those questions on the camera for you and give you 5 minutes to answer those questions, and then we'll go through some of the answers. Okay, so I've given you 2 minutes there. If you need extra time, then just pause the video and go and find the answers ready to go through them with me, okay? So what is the day of the reaping? So the day of the reaping is the day when 2 names in each district are pulled out of a glass bowl, and those people have to go off to the Hunger Games. So it's the day It's the day each year 2 names are chosen for the Hunger Games from each district. So if you might remember, they are called tributes. They call these people tributes. So the day each year 2 names are chosen for the Hunger Games from each district. So all together they have 24 tributes that attend the Hunger Games. And it's a big event. It's televised. People wear their Sunday best. And as you can tell, everyone felt very anxious about it because it's almost like a celebration. But in reality, what we know is those 2 people have to fight for the death. So it's really quite a vicious day that is treated as some sort of national holiday. Okay, question number 2. What are the Hunger Games? So the Hunger Games, as it says on page 17, I'm just going to go back to that. I think it's really important because it really, you know, being the title of our novel, it's the crux of our novel. So it says the Hunger Games here. The rules of the Hunger Games are simple. In punishment for the uprising, so uprising, it'd be really good if, again, you can jump on the online dictionary, if you have that up when you are reading. That's what I've got up at the moment to help me. An uprising is a rebellion. So people rebelled against the government. So in punishment for that, in punishment for rebelling, each of the 12 districts must provide 1 girl and 1 boy called tributes to participate. The 24 tributes will be imprisoned in a vast outdoor arena that could hold anything from a burning desert to a frozen wasteland. Over a period of several weeks, the competitors must fight to the death. The last tribute standing wins. So as you can see here, when I was reading it through, I wrote 23 will die because I just thought that was so extreme and really gives that sense of foreboding as you're reading, that you know your main character might die. So there's this constant sense that you're fighting against each other. So the Hunger Games are like this evil, dystopian Olympic Games. So that word dystopian that I've just said, I said here, dystopian. We talked about this last week. It's a nightmare world. So it's definitely a nightmare world that they're talking about. So the word dystopian, I'll probably use a lot in these videos because this is a dystopian novel. It's a nightmare world Katniss lives in. Okay, so that was the answer to number 2. So I'm going to put dystopian Olympics. You fight to the death. Okay, question number 3. What is the name of Katniss's country? So that was Panem. Okay, it's Panem and it's split into 12 districts. So a bit like we have counties like Kent, Essex. Panem is split into 12 districts, and we know that Katniss lives in District 12, doesn't she? Okay, so also, quite importantly, on page 17, it told us where the country of Panem comes from. So, the history of Panem, the country that rose up out of the ashes of a place that was once called North America. So we know that this novel is set in the future because in our world, in 2020, we have North America, don't we? Okay, so what's happened is North America has had a disaster, droughts, storms, fires, and the land was swallowed up. There was a brutal war, and the result was Panem. Okay, Panem was the country that was left over. So this is a future world that the author has imagined. There's a shining capital ringed by 13 districts, but what happened was one of those 13 districts rebelled against the capital, and that 13th district was obliterated. Now, if you are to look at the definition of that, it means completely destroyed. So the one district that did try and rebel against this new world of Panem, was completely destroyed. and we have left 12 districts. Okay, so before we start reading, I've got some more questions, which I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. Again, if you want to do them on your own and pause, then that is great practice. So question number 5, which girl is picked from the glass ball? On page 19, so which girl is picked in District 12? And the answer was Primrose Everdeen, who we know is Katniss Everdeen's little sister. And what happened was she then volunteered, Katniss did, and said, no, I will do it instead, because Prim was only 12. 6. What act of kindness did Peter Mellark show to Katniss? Page 29. So we know Peter Mellark is the character he's the boy who was picked. So he is the boy who is going to be going to the Hunger Games with Katniss to participate. But remember, there can only be one winner. They cannot both win. So the act of kindness Peter Mellark showed Katniss was when they were younger and Katniss was starving, when her dad had died, her mum was very depressed and she couldn't feed her family. That act of kindness was he threw her 2 loaves from his parents' bakery. And when she thought about that overnight, she thought that actually he must have burnt them on purpose so that they would be fed to the pigs and he could then throw them to her. So he showed her an act of kindness in the past that she feels she's never really thanked him for, and now she's been thrown together with him in the Hunger Games. So what district did Katniss volunteer to represent at the Hunger Games? I think I've probably told you the answer. It's District 12. Okay, so hopefully you did really well in that quiz. It's refreshed your memory. You've recalled lots of information. So you're ready to go reading chapter 3 with us today. Okay, so before we start reading, we always do our first skill of predicting. In order to predict when you are reading a novel, so you're moving through chapters, you need to summarise what's happened in the previous chapters. So this quiz has allowed us to summarise lots of important facts about the Hunger Games novel, chapter 1 and 2. So we know about Katniss, she's a hunter. She has a 12-year-old sister, Prim. Her mother's quite depressed. Her father died, and therefore Katniss is the provider. She hunts, and we know that she has a best friend called Gale. We also know that she has been picked. Her sister was picked to go to the Hunger Games, and instead Katniss volunteered, and that the boy that's been picked is called Peter Mellark. Okay, so we've revised lots of these things, summarised them. So now we're going to predict what will happen next, okay? So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds whilst you're getting chapter 3 ready. And so am I, making sure I've got my highlighter and I can get and my ruler, and I'm able to get on my online dictionary if I need to. So just predict what you think will happen in chapter 3. So I'm just going to demonstrate. I predict Katniss will begin her training for the Hunger Games. Now I'm just going to write capital HG when I'm making notes for the Hunger Games. Okay, we're going to start reading. Okay, so try and read along with me, making notes, underlining any keywords. The moment the anthem ends, we are taken into custody. So again, straight away, that word custody makes me think of prison. So already we feel that Katniss is trapped. She is trapped in this awful game, this dystopian game. So she's trapped. I don't mean we're handcuffed or anything, but a group of peacekeepers marches us through the front door of the Justice Building. Maybe tributes have tried to escape in the past. I've never seen that happen though. So we know that it's actually a really violent, brutal world that she's living in. So it seems quite ironic that you've got these people called peacekeepers and they live in a justice building, bearing in mind every single year they kill 23 teenagers to warn people away from rebelling. It doesn't seem like a very nice world that is filled with peace and justice. Once inside, I'm conducted to a room and left alone. It's the richest place I've ever been in, with thick, deep carpets and a velvet couch and chairs. I know velvet because my mother has a dress with a collar made of the stuff. When I sit on the couch, I can't help running my fingers over the fabric repeatedly. So again, remembering we said in the past that this is an American novel, so the word couch we'd probably call a sofa. It helps to calm me as I try to prepare for the next hour, the time allotted for the tributes to say goodbye to their loved ones. I cannot afford to get upset, to leave this room with puffy eyes and a red nose. Crying is not an option. There will be more cameras at the train station. Okay, so I'm just going to have a little question. Why do you think Katniss says crying is not an option? Why does she not want the cameras to catch her crying? So just write down why you think that might be. Okay, so my idea is that she wants to appear strong. Okay, she doesn't want anyone to think she's weak and therefore vulnerable, because she really wants to win. She wants to win these and stay alive. Who wouldn't? So she wants to appear strong. She wants to appear resilient. So that word means someone who can take on anything and never really gives up. My sister and my mother come first. I reach out to Prim and she climbs on my lap, her arms around my neck, head on my shoulder, just like she did when she was a toddler. My mother sits beside me and wraps her arms around us. For a few minutes we say nothing. Then I start telling them all the things they must remember to do, now that I will not be there to do them for them. So Katniss has a very motherly role there. Perhaps that's because her mother has obviously suffered with depression. Prim is not to take any tesserae. So guys, this is a kind of keyword for our book. So if you have a glossary going on paper, then perhaps write that down. So tesserae is when you put in your name for the reaping and you put your name in extra times in order to get grain and oil for your family to help feed them, because we know that they were really poor in District 12. They were starving. So you get extra food for more entries. So Katniss had lots and lots of entries for the reaping day because she'd been feeding her family. So you get extra food for more entries for the next reaping. They can get by if they're careful on selling Prim's goat milk and cheese and the small apothecary business my mother now runs for the people in the seam. Gale will get her the herbs she doesn't grow herself. So apothecary is, again I'm going to highlight that key word. So it means a chemist, really, what we might call a pharmacy or a chemist. So it's where people buy things that help heal them. So a pharmacy or a chemist is another word for that. Okay, but she must be very careful to describe them because he's not as familiar with them as I am. He'll also bring them game. Remember we said games like deer, wild animals like that. He and I made a pact about this a year or so ago and will probably not ask for compensation, but they should thank him with some kind of trade like milk or medicine. Okay guys, just as I'm reading that, I'm thinking back, one of the questions for the quick quiz at the beginning I didn't answer. So it was, what animal does Greasy say in the black market buy off Katniss for her soups? And it was a wild dog. So she was buying wild dogs off Katniss and cooking them up and not telling people what they were eating. So if you got the answer right, well done. Sorry I forgot. I don't bother suggesting Prim learnt to hunt. I tried to teach her a couple of times and it was disastrous. The woods terrified her, and whenever I shot something, she'd get teary and talk about how we might be able to heal it if we got it home soon enough. But she makes out well with her goat, so I concentrate on that. When I am done with instructions about fuel and trading and staying in school, I turn to my mother and grip her arm hard. Listen to me. Are you listening to me? She nods, alarmed by my intensity. She must know what's coming. You can't leave again, I say. My mother's eyes find the floor. I know, I won't. I couldn't help what? Well, you have to help it this time. You can't clock out and leave Prim on her own. There's no me now to keep you both alive. It doesn't matter what happens. Whatever you see on the screen, you have to promise me you'll fight through it. My voice has risen to a shout. In it is all the anger, all the fear I felt at her abandonment. Okay, so we're sort of being revealed snippets of their past here. So it sounds like at some point Mother left and abandoned them. And put little question marks. We don't know fully what happened. So that would explain why Katniss has this really fierce, protective attitude towards Prim. Why she has taken on this perhaps stereotypical male role of going out to hunt for her family. So it sounds like Mother, in all her grief and depression, might have abandoned them. She pulls her arm from my grasp, moved to anger herself now. I was ill. I could have treated myself if I'd had the medicine I have now. That part about her being ill might be true. I've seen her bring back people suffering from immobilising. Sadness since. Perhaps it is a sickness, but it's one we can't afford. So I think what they're talking about there, this sickness, is depression. Then take it and take care of her, I say. I'll be all right, Katniss, says Prim, clasping my face in her hands. But you have to take care too. You're so fast and brave. Maybe you can win. I can't win. Prim must know that in her heart. The competition will be far beyond my abilities. Kids from wealthier districts. Okay, so wealthier. So the word wealthier, if you want to type that into your online dictionary, or you might already know it. Think about what words we could replace that with. So we could replace the word wealthier with richer. So kids from richer districts. Where winning is a huge honour, who've been trained their whole lives for this. Boys who are 2 to 3 times my size. Girls who know 20 different ways to kill you with a knife. Oh, there'll be people like me too. People to weed out before the real fun begins. So I'm just going to ask a question. What is Katniss's opinion about her success in the Hunger Games? What does she predict her future in these brutal games will be? I'll give you 30 seconds to jot down your thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to write down what I think the answer is. So my answer would be that she believes that she cannot win. Okay, so as I'm going to highlight, she says, I can't win. Okay, so Katniss truly believes that she does not have a chance of winning. So as I said, I think Katniss doesn't believe in herself. She doesn't believe in her future. However, as a reader, I know I'm really gunning for her. I really want her to do well because we know from already how good she is at surviving, how good she is at hunting, that she does have a lot of skills that hopefully she'll need. Maybe, I say, because I can hardly tell my mother to carry on if I've already given up myself. Besides, it isn't in my nature to go down without a fight, even when things seem insurmountable. Okay, so that's a really tricky word to read. It's got lots of syllables. Insurmountable. So if something's insurmountable, I'm going to look this up to make sure I get the right definition. Insurmountable. So my online dictionary says something that's too great to overcome. Okay, so something that is almost too great to overcome. So it's a challenge that just seems so hard, then it feels like you can't overcome it. Then we'd be rich as Hamish. So Hamish, if you remember, he was the guy that won from District 12 before. So he's an ex-winner from District 12. And in the whole history of Panem, there's only ever been 2 winners. So in the whole, I think 70 years, she said, history, correct me if I'm wrong, then there's only been 2 winners and one is Hamish. Now he's quite important. You'll be hearing his name more frequently. I don't care if we're rich. I just want you to come home. You will try, won't you? Really, really try? Asked Prim. Really, really try. I swear it, I say. And I know because of Prim I'll have to. And then the peacekeeper is at the door, signalling our time is up, and we're all hugging one another so hard it hurts, and all I'm saying is, I love you. I love you both. And they're saying it back, and then the peacekeeper orders them out and the door closes. I bury my head in one of the velvet pillows as if this can block the whole thing out. It's quite ironic that it's the first time she's experienced luxury and these velvet pillows, this lovely living room space she's in, and she's feeling so distraught, so upset. Someone else enters the room, and when I look up, I'm surprised to see it's the baker, Peter Mellark's father. I can't believe he's come to visit me. After all, I'll be trying to kill his son soon. But we do know each other a bit, and he knows Prim even better. When she sells her goat cheeses at the hob, she puts 2 of them aside for him, and he gives her a generous amount of bread in return. We always wait to trade with him when his witch of a wife isn't around, because he's so much nicer. We've met that witch of a wife earlier, haven't we, when she hit Peter Mellark when he was a child. I feel certain he would never have hit his son the way she did over the burned bread. But why has he come to see me? The baker sits awkwardly on the edge of one of the plush chairs. He's a big, broad-shouldered man with burn scars from years at the ovens. He must have just said goodbye to his son. He pulls a white paper package from his jacket pocket and holds it out to me. I open it and find cookies. These are a luxury we can never afford. Thank you, I say. The baker's not a very talkative man in the best of times, and today he has no words at all. I had some of your bread this morning. My friend Gail gave you a squirrel for it. He nods, as if remembering the squirrel. Not your best trade, I say. He shrugs as if it couldn't possibly matter. Then I can't think of anything else, so we sit in silence until a peacemaker summons him. He rises and coughs to clear his throat. I'll keep an eye on the little girl. Make sure she's eating. So this is again another act of kindness from Peter Mellark's father this time. He's saying that he will watch over Prim, make sure she doesn't get in trouble again starving, because perhaps people know that Katniss's mother isn't reliable. I feel some of the pressure in my chest lighten at his words. People deal with me, but they are genuinely fond of Prim. Maybe there will be enough fondness to keep her alive. Okay, so we're going to pause there today on page 35. So your homework for next week is to read to the end of chapter 4. Okay, so read to the end of chapter 4, continue to clarify keywords and make notes of them. Maybe create a summary when you finish reading with bullet point information. This will help you for the quick quiz at the beginning of next week's video. Okay, and you should be able to write down all those key bits of information there, which will help you. And if you have any questions or if you need any help, then please email me. Okay, my email address will be on the school website with all the information about these videos. So I hope that everyone is really enjoying the Hunger Games. So I've read it before, and rereading it, I'm as excited and thoroughly enjoying it as much as the first time. about this dystopian nightmare world with these brutal sort of Olympic games. So I can't wait to see what happens next time when I'm sure the games are going to begin. Okay, so I will see you next week for our third instalment of our Reading Buddy virtual lessons.